A new nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile that could target the entire U.S. mainland.
We've been speaking to one of our top rocket experts on North Korea, and to paraphrase his reaction after seeing these images, wow, it confirms to him and it confirms to others that North Korea has made a dangerous leap forward in missile development. Instead of one engine in the first stage of this ICBM, there are two. The second stage, much more powerful than past models. The guidance system more sophisticated, allowing the range of this missile to extend well into mainland United States, and seeming to back up the claims of the regime of Kim Jong-un. The nose cone is bigger and more rounded, able to handle large, maybe multiple nuclear payloads, and perhaps better survive the re-entry.
It also says the new missile is significantly more powerful than its previous long-range weapon. The launch comes 1 week after the White House declared North Korea a state sponsor of terrorism.
The Pentagon says North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile like this one from an area north of Pyongyang. It was in the air for some 50 minutes, soaring over 2,300 miles into space before splashing down in the Sea of Japan.
It went higher, frankly, than any previous shot they've taken. It's a research and development effort on their part to continue building ballistic missiles that could threaten everywhere in the world, basically.
Intelligence agencies were anticipating the launch. Japanese government sources said they detected radio signals that suggested North Korea was preparing for a test. North Korea began firing ballistic missiles at a rate of 2 or 3 a month, starting in April. The most recent launch took place 10 weeks ago. President Trump offered a relatively muted response.
I will only tell you that we will take care of it. We have General Mattis in the room with us, and we've had a long discussion on it. It is a situation that we will handle.
According to David Wright from the Union of Concerned Scientists, if the missile had been fired at a standard trajectory, it could have reached any part of the U.S. On Tuesday, officials in Hawaii unveiled a statewide missile warning system.
The focus is to get the public and our visitors as much warning time to prepare as possible.
Hawaii plans to test those new sirens out on Friday.
The Trump administration is urging all countries to cut ties with North Korea after its newest missile test. A video released overnight shows Wednesday's launch of that intercontinental ballistic missile. Analysts say that it is capable of striking anywhere in the United States. American UN Ambassador Nikki Haley says this test brings the world closer to war. She warned that North Korea would be utterly destroyed if war comes. Ben Tracy is in Tokyo following the reaction there. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. The only two countries that have any real ties to North Korea are Russia and China. And today, Russia flat out rejected President Trump's call to sever ties with Kim Jong-un's regime. They want the U.S. to try diplomacy, even though North Korea seems more intent on testing missiles than talking. As North Korea's most advanced missile launched into the night sky, a beaming Kim Jong-un was clearly pleased with his regime's accomplishment. The Hwasong-15 rocket is the third ICBM launched by North Korea in the past 6 months.
The dictator of North Korea made a choice yesterday that brings the world closer to war, not farther from it.
At an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley issued a stark warning about what she calls North Korea's continued acts of aggression.
If war comes, make no mistake, the North Korean regime will be utterly destroyed.
The Trump administration is calling on China, North Korea's main trading partner, to entirely cut off the regime's oil supply.
Little rocket man.
President Trump made fun of Kim Jong-un during a speech outside St. Louis on tax reform.
He is a sick puppy.
But experts who have studied photos of the regime's new weapon are taking it very seriously.
I think it's clear from the pictures that it's a more capable rocket than certainly than the last one we saw.
David Wright of the Union of Concerned Scientists says he's surprised by how fast North Korea is advancing its missile program.
I'm less skeptical than I might have been that they can deliver a warhead to certainly the West Coast and maybe larger parts of the United States. So I think the threat that they have been talking about is a real threat at this point.
After this latest missile launch, North Korea has declared that it has completed its nuclear weapons program. State media there says Kim Jong-un said it was such a milestone, it should be recorded in the nation's history.
Dangerous stuff, Sandra.
Greg, what could this all mean regarding the U.S. strategy in dealing with North Korea?
Well, the response, Sandra, of the Trump administration has been fast and strong. We heard from its U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, late yesterday at a special session of the UN Security Council following this launch, calling on all countries to sever all ties with North Korea, threatening to destroy the regime of Kim Jong-un.
The United States is asking for all countries to cut all ties with North Korea after their latest test of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Ambassador Nikki Haley is also directly asking China to cut off all oil supplies to Kim Jong-un.
In addition to fully implementing all UN sanctions, all countries should sever diplomatic relations with North Korea and limit military, scientific, technical, or commercial cooperation. They must also cut off trade with the regime by stopping all imports and exports and expel all North Korean workers.
The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting this evening after North Korea tested a missile that could put Washington, D.C. in range of a nuclear warhead for the first time. For more on this, we go to John Sitilides, foreign policy principal at Trilogy Advisors. Well, it just seems like every time you and I visit about this, it just notches up a little bit more. The UN Security Council is now looking at a blockade. That could be an open confrontation on the open seas. Is this the final?
It won't happen. China and Russia will veto any type of a naval blockade effort on the UN Security Council. So North Korea is protected there. I think what the U.S. will try to do is, again, as Ambassador Haley mentioned, try to marshal as many countries as possible to limit trade. But we're really only talking about a handful of countries that have any meaningful trade right now, Ed, with North Korea. And that's Russia, that's Iran, and that's China. And China has made very clear they are not going to cut off oil to North Korea.
So there's no way of cutting off their oil supplies then. We can ask for it, but in reality, it's not going to happen.
The Chinese are terrified of a humanitarian crisis in North Korea spilling over into its borders and in fomenting regional stability. It's not in China's interest today to cut off oil to North Korea.
But if that's the case, then they have to realize that there's a lot of people on the United States mainland that are pretty concerned about being hit with a nuke. So why hasn't China leveraged played every card in the deck to reverse this?
I think there's still some time to go here. I mean, we've certainly crossed a very important threshold, Ed, but keep in mind, North Korea is able to now reach the United States with an ICBM, but they still have to work on miniaturizing the warhead. They need to be able to assure that there's a re-entry vehicle that can come through the Earth's atmosphere and actually strike a target, and they have to strike that target accurately. But we are someplace now in 2017 that we didn't think we'd reach this quickly. We thought we'd be here in 2019, 2020. And my guess is he may reach those milestones in 2018. Then we're talking about very serious business.
Okay. Will the capability of North Korea being able to hit the United States change the dynamic, change the situation?
This president has said he is not going to allow North Korea to have the ability to strike the United States.
So we could be at war tomorrow.
Not tomorrow, but
why not? I mean, we have nukes, and I think we're at that point. And I mean, I think the American people are out there wondering, what is this going to look like?
Well, this is the difficult part about leadership, Ed. At some point, the president, along with our allies, because we're not simply going to be taking any type of risky steps and losing South Korea or losing Japan in the process. The stakes for the world economy and for American leadership are enormous. But we do know that if we do have war, we're talking about the potential for millions of dead and casualties beyond the imagination and reconstruction that'll cost trillions of dollars. The problem is, what happens if we don't strike North Korea, if that threat is imminent, if it's real, and the outcome is far worse?